It began on a Friday. The kind of Friday where the world feels like it's holding its breath when the sky is too quiet, and the wind seems to whisper things it shouldn't know. Noah Fields, a 32-year-old sound engineer in the fading town of Graybridge, was adjusting the old ham radio in his attic, a hobby he'd kept since childhood. Graybridge had once been a manufacturing hub, its factories and railways humming like a heartbeat. Now it was a rusting skeleton of its former self-shuttered shops, flickering neon and the echo of better days. Noah liked the quiet, the stillness. But tonight felt different. He was twisting the dial past static and familiar chatter when something strange broke through the fuzz. A voice. "This is WZUR, 94.7 megahertz. Transmitting from Graybridge. The date is August 18th, 2025. Forecast for tomorrow. Fire in the East Quadrant. Evacuate all structures near Powerline Street before 3:13 p.m. Noah frowned. The signal was crisp. Too crisp. But WZUR didn't exist not anymore. That station had been decommissioned in 1997, its tower demolished, its frequency abandoned. And the message it claimed to be August 18th. That was tomorrow. Noah grabbed a tape recorder and hit record, fingers trembling slightly. The voice, on the other end, continued calmly, almost hypnotically, reciting a list of events. 3:13 p.m. Fire, Powerline Street. 6:46 p.m. Blackout downtown. 9:17 p.m. Do not answer your door. The transmission ended abruptly. Final burst of static screaming into silence. He sat there for a long time, staring at the recorder as if it might explain itself. The attic creaked, as if in response. The next morning, Noah couldn't shake the memory. He told himself it was a prank, some pirate radio operator playing a game. But still, as the afternoon crept toward 3:13 p.m., he drove toward Powerline Street, his curiosity outweighing caution. He parked across from a cluster of rundown storage units near the old paper mill. It was quiet, empty. Dust spiraled in the sun. Then it happened. A muffled roar shook the ground as smoke burst from one of the units. Flames climbed the aluminum walls, blackening the sky. A propane tank hidden inside had detonated. Fire engines screamed in from opposite ends of the street. Noah watched in stunned silence. The radio had been right. That night, he returned to the attic with shaking hands. He rewound the tape and played it back. The voice was still there, eerily calm, delivering its forecast of the future. At 6:46 p.m., as predicted, the lights in his house flickered, then died. The power grid was out across Graybridge. He lit a candle and stared into the shadows. At 9:17 p.m., a knock came at his door. Noah froze. One knock, then two more. Slow, deliberate. He didn't move. The knock came again, followed by silence. Noah didn't open it. When he checked the porch an hour later, no one was there but faint. Wet footprints trailed across his doorstep, heading toward the woods. The next day, Noah drove to the public library, digging into the archives. WZUR, according to the last FCC record, had gone off air in April 1997 after a mysterious fire destroyed its studio on the outskirts of town. The fire had never been explained. No suspects. No survivors. Just ashes. He found an old photograph of the station, a crumbling brick building with a 200-foot steel tower beside it. According to the town's records, the area had been converted into a municipal junkyard. He drove there. The junkyard was silent, dotted with rusted cars and broken machines. But there it was, hidden beneath ivy and bent rebar, the old station building. Its roof had collapsed, but the walls were standing. The door was chained shut, yet the windows were shattered. Inside, the air smelled of ash and dust. Noah stepped over rubble and fallen beams until he found an old transmitter, half buried in debris. And on the wall, scorched but legible, was the call sign, WZUR. It hadn't broadcast in nearly 30 years, but somehow was sending messages again. Noah retrieved a broken desk drawer and found dozens of notebooks charred, many unreadable, but one still intact. Inside it read, "It doesn't predict the future, it remembers it." That night, The radio crackled to life again. New messages, new dates, new warnings. And Noah realized something chilling. Whoever was sending these broadcasts wasn't trying to help the town. The notebook Noah found in the ruins of WZUR was burned around the edges, the binding brittle and soft with rot. But its pages held more than ash and age, were filled with time-stamped broadcasts in the same chilling tone he had heard on his attic radio. He flipped through line after line of cold predictions. October 14th, 1995. Missing child, Sycamore Park, 11:08 a.m. Do not intervene. Observation only. March 2nd, 1996. Collapse of Blue Ridge Bridge. Structural fatigue blamed. Fatalities. 7. April 17th, 1997. Final broadcast. Station consumed. Transmission loops initiate. There were scribbled notes in the margins, possibly from a former technician. Not prediction, not live. This is a recording from the future. It's already happened or will happen. Stomach churned. Was he picking up a timeline that hadn't happened yet? Or had WZUR been somehow tuned to a loop of time where events replayed again and again like echoes trapped in a cave? Back home, Noah set up a full recording rig. He rewired the attic radio into a digital capture system and installed backup batteries in case of blackouts. He wanted to catch everything. That night, at exactly 12 a.m., the radio came alive again. The voice, identical in tone and cadence, whispered, WZUR, midnight transmission. July 23, 2025, Lakeview Hospital, do not trust. Dr. Mance, lockdown begins at 4:31 p.m. Avoid elevator shaft B3. Noah didn't recognize the name. But Lakeview Hospital was the only medical facility in Graybridge. He made a note. This felt bigger than a hobby now. Something dark was moving, and he might be the only one listening. The next morning, he drove to Lakeview and sat in the parking lot with a pair of binoculars and a growing sense of dread. He watched nurses exit for smoke breaks, patients being wheeled under canopies, orderlies wheeling carts between wings. It looked normal till 4:29 p.m. Suddenly, a piercing alarm blared from inside. Hospital staff started running. A maintenance door flew open. 2 men in lab coats, one wearing a tag that read Dr. Mance rushed out, shouting into radios. Noah watched as a SWAT team appeared from a black unmarked van and stormed into the West Wing. Chaos followed. Windows shattered. Someone screamed. He didn't need to see inside to know. Something had gone very wrong with the elevators. He turned his key and drove off, gripping the steering wheel tight. The station had been right again. But why tell him? Why deliver these eerie warnings to one man in a dead town? Back in the attic, Noah stared at the setup. The notebook lay open beside him, almost humming with silent dread. He picked it up and turned the page. There, in tight handwriting, was a single sentence circled twice. If you respond to the broadcast, they will know you exist. His hand stopped over the dial. He had wanted to answer, to say something into the static, to ask, who are you? Now he wondered, who would hear him if he did? Instead, he set the recorder to stand by and waited. Midnight came. The signal returned. WZUR. Forecast. July 24th, 2025. 7:12 a.m. Male, age 32. Home address 18 Rook Street. Subject has knowledge. Remove. Noah's blood froze. That was his address. Him. He leapt up, tore the radio from the outlet, smashed the receiver. To the floor, but it was already too late. Outside, an engine started. Noah's heart pounded as he stumbled away from the shattered radio. Shards of its black plastic case scattered across the attic floor like teeth. He hadn't imagined it. The voice had spoken his name without speaking it his, identity encoded into a broadcast from a station that shouldn't exist. Outside, an engine idled in the darkness. He crept to the attic window. Through the dusty pane, he could just make out the shape of a black car parked across the street. Its headlights were off. The driver didn't exit. It just waited. Backed away from the window, he grabbed his phone. No signal. not even Wi-Fi. Something was jamming it. At 7:11 a.m., a knock came at the front door. 3 knocks. Exactly like the ones the night before. Calm, rhythmic. He didn't move. A minute passed. Then the knock came again. But this time, it was on the attic door. Noah spun around. No one should have been able to get up there. The only way in was the narrow staircase he'd just come up. His breath caught in his throat. The door creaked slightly, but didn't open. Then, without warning, the radio broken and unplugged, lit up. The dial glowed green. The static returned. WZUR. July 24th, 2025. Subject compromised.
Activation.
Commence observation protocol.
Electrocution.
12 a.m. July 25th. Do not flee. Noah ran. He didn't take his car. He didn't take his phone. He didn't even take clothes. It's just the notebook, the recorder, and a flashlight. He sprinted through backyards, alleyways, and over fences until he reached the Graybridge train station. The 7:45 a.m. express to Mason City was boarding. He bought a ticket with cash. He kept looking over his shoulder. No one followed. When the train pulled out of the station, he exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. By 10 a.m., Noah was holed up in a cheap motel outside Mason City. Peeling wallpaper, a humming mini-fridge, no cameras, no windows facing the highway. He turned on the recorder again, more out of obsession than logic. The voice hadn't just predicted his fate, it had targeted him. That meant someone or something was listening. He opened the notebook. On the last page was a short phrase he hadn't noticed before, scrawled in dark blue ink. Time doesn't move forward, it listens and repeats. That night, he sat in the dark, flashlight in one hand, recorder in the other. Midnight came, static, and then WZUR, midnight. Transmission, July 25th. Graybridge. Event failure. Subject not found. Initiate retrieval in Mason City sector. Forecast for July 26th. Clock Tower Square, 3:03 p.m. Collapse. Bystanders at risk. Do not record. Do not record. But he was already recording. Noah blinked. The voice knew. It was adapting. Tracking. He was no longer just listening. He was involved. At dawn, he went to the Mason City Archives building. It was old, with limestone columns and musty shelves filled with newspapers and radio logs. He scoured every reference he could find about WZUR-IT's staff, its history, its closure. Only one name popped up more than once, Eleora Gray. Chief signal technician in the 1990s, she had written technical columns on ham frequencies, and once claimed in a Fringe magazine that certain signals echo from events not yet occurred. Noah tracked down her last known address. It was local. He knocked on the door of a weather-beaten brown house. Wind chimes clinked uneasily. An old woman answered. "Oh, yes," she rasped. "Ms. Gray?" he asked. "My name's Noah Fields. I think I'm hearing what you once heard." Her face changed, hardened. "You brought it with you," she said. Before he could respond, she opened the door wider. The inside of Eleora Gray's house was dimly lit, the windows covered with thick blackout curtains. The air smelled of candle wax and old radio tubes. Her living room was a shrine to analog tech vintage oscilloscopes, transistor boards, and stacks of notebooks with yellowing pages. Eli Ora. In her late 70s, but with eyes that gleamed with alert intelligence, motioned Noah to sit. She didn't offer tea or ask questions. She simply walked to a battered drawer, opened it, pulled out a rusted metal tin. Inside were cassettes. WZUR, she said, sliding one across the table. "Same station, different decade. I've been recording it since 1995. Noah stared. "How?" "I used to work there," she said. "I thought it was a normal radio station until the first backcast." Backcast? Not forecast, not prediction. These aren't guesses. They're memories from a future that already exists. Somewhere. Her voice trembled slightly. At first, it was weather. Then disasters. Then people. Deaths. Murders. You name it. All accurate. All unchangeable. But, Noah began. What if you do try to change it? She locked eyes with him. You invite the wrong timeline in? Noah told her everything. The fire, the hospital, the broadcast naming him, the silent black car, the warning not to record. She nodded grimly. You're being watched. Once the voice says your name or implies it, you're in the loop. Recordings become personal. You're no longer just a listener. You're a subject. But who's broadcasting? Noah asked. Is it I? Is it alien? No one knows, she whispered. We thought it might be a residual echo from a collapsing timeline, a world where everything already happened and is being replayed like magnetic tape on loop. Others thought it was intelligence beyond us, something that feeds on time itself. She paused. I think it's a machine, built by something not from here. Maybe not even alive. It doesn't care about us. It doesn't warn. It documents. And it doesn't like interference. Noah looked down at his recorder. It was still running. Then why let me hear it? He asked. Eliora hesitated, then said, because maybe you're supposed to. Maybe the loop is breaking. That night they set up her old rig, a beast of a machine with glowing tubes and analog wires. It was the only thing she claimed could truly pick up the full frequency. One that fluctuated subtly outside normal bandwidth. Midnight came. The signal returned, but it sounded different, fuzzier, angrier. WZUR, July 26th. Subject, Fields. Relocation. Unauthorized, Clock Tower Square. 3:03 p.m. Interference imminent. Broadcast unstable. Reset required. The voice distorted. Then something new. He's not supposed to hear this. Stop recording. And then a second voice cut in. A woman's voice crackling beneath the static. If you hear this, Noah, run. The transmission died. Eliora stared at the machine. Her face had gone pale. That's never happened before, she said. Noah backed away. Who was she? I don't know. She wasn't part of the broadcast. She hijacked it. The timeline was glitching, and someone else was trying to help. The static hung in the air like smoke. It wasn't just a sound. It was a presence. A distortion Noah could feel in the back of his skull. He and Eliora sat in stunned silence after. The hijacked broadcast ended. A woman's voice had pierced through the impossible like a crack in glass. If you hear this, Noah, run. It hadn't been part of WZUR's usual monotone transmissions. It was raw, desperate, human. Eliora leaned closer to the receiver, her eyes darting over the signal meter. She cut in on the bleed band. She whispered, No one's ever done that before. Whoever she is, she's not part of them. Noah felt a chill crawl up his spine. They know I'm listening. But she knows who I am. The next morning, the sky over Mason City was unusually gray. Not with clouds, but with a strange electric haze that shimmered faintly, like heat ripples. Noah stepped outside the motel and instinctively looked toward the town's central, Plaza. Clock Tower Square. The broadcast had said 3:03 p.m. Something was going to collapse. A building? A timeline? Eliora called him from her landline at 11 a.m. You have to see this, she said. When he arrived, she had her old cathode ray TV on. The news was showing footage of yesterday's fire from Graybridge, except something was wrong. The reporter was interviewing a firefighter. The man was speaking clearly, but when he mentioned the cause of the blaze, the audio warped. Initial reports suggest a gas line static, triggered by interference from unknown static ****. The screen flickered, and for a fraction of a second, Noah saw himself in the background of the footage, standing behind the caution tape, staring at the fire. But he had never been there. He was watching from across the street, never caught on camera. What the hell? Eliora stepped back. They're rewriting the tape, she said. You're being inserted into the story. Why? Because that's how they erase you. First, they make you part of the signal. Then they overwrite you. One day you'll look in the mirror and see someone else's eyes. Your memory will go next. Noah gritted his teeth. And I'm going to Clock Tower Square. At 2:55 p.m., the plaza was busy with tourists and workers on break. Children played by the fountain. A food vendor handed out drinks. The clock tower stood tall, its hands ticking toward the top of the hour. Noah stood in the middle. heart racing. Eliora had warned him to avoid it. But he had to see what happened. If he could witness the collapse and survive, maybe he could break the loop. Maybe he wasn't doomed. 2:59. 3 o'clock. 3:01. He turned toward the fountain. A ripple moved through the water, a natural, geometric, like pixels stuttering in real life. 3:02. Pigeons on the tower froze in midair for a split second. Then, exactly at 3:03 p.m., a deep, humming sound filled the square. The clock face cracked. Noah stepped back. A woman grabbed his wrist from behind. "Don't move," she whispered. "I'm the one from the signal." When he turned, Dan saw the same woman who had hijacked the broadcast, young eyes dark with exhaustion, but sharp with purpose. She wore a mechanic's jumpsuit. No name tag. How? He started, no time. "Look," she pointed at the tower. Reality bent like a wave. The base of the tower shimmered, then blinked out like a skipped video frame. When it reappeared, the plaza was empty. Noah looked around. Everyone dash was gone, except them. The woman pulled a small radio from her coat. "This frequency," she said, handing it to him. "Don't let them find it. Don't let them trace you. You've been marked by WZUR. Who are you?" "I was the last person who heard the signal and tried to fight back. I lost everything. But I found a crack in the loop. You're the first person in 30 years who's heard me." The tower above them flickered again. "They're rebooting the timeline," she said. "We have less than a minute before this. Place resets." Noah's voice was hoarse. "What do I do?" "Run," she said. "Next time they broadcast, don't listen alone." A blinding flash of white swept across Clock Tower Square, then dashed silence. The plaza refilled instantly with life. Like a VHS tape hitting rewind and play in one blink. The children reappeared, still laughing. The fountain burbled again. Vendors handed out cold drinks as if nothing had happened. The birds resumed flight. But Noah wasn't the same. He stood motionless at the center of it all. Clutching the strange, compact radio, the woman had given him its casing, unlike anything he'd seen before. It didn't have a dial, just a single button. Eliora's words echoed in his head. "They erase you by overwriting." He turned, scanning the crowd. The woman who had warned him, the one who hijacked the WZUR signal, was gone. Vanished, as if she'd never been there. No one looked at Noah. Not a single person acknowledged the fact that seconds ago the entire timeline had folded over itself like a glitch in a game. He wasn't part of this version of reality. He was in between. Back at the motel, he flipped on Eliora's analog monitor. It sparked and flickered. The signal from WZUR was still active. It scrambled like it was stuttering, glitching, repeating a fragment of data. WZUR. Broadcast delay. Recalibration error. Recalibration error. Recalibration error. It was trying to reset. But he sat beside Eliora, who looked more tired than ever. "What happened?" she asked. "I saw the glitch," Noah whispered. "I think I survived the collapse." She raised an eyebrow. "No one survives a collapse and remembers." "I do," he said, "and I met someone. A woman. Said she found a crack in the loop. She gave me this." He placed the small radio on the table. Eliora leaned forward. "That's not analog. Not even digital. That's something else." "I think it's a beacon," Noah said, "or a transmitter. Maybe a bridge to her frequency." The old woman studied the device. Then her voice dropped. "If she's re-land, she got into the signal. Then there's a second layer." Noah nodded. "She said I shouldn't listen alone anymore." "You won't," Eliora said, then coughed into her hand. When she pulled it away, her palm was streaked with gray static, not blood, but distortion. Like something inside her was becoming corrupted. Noah stared. "What's happening to you?" "They're rewriting me," she said. "I've listened too long." Noah buried himself in research that night. The woman's frequency, the mechanics of signal hijacking. He recorded dozens of local broadcasts, ran them through software spectrograms, waveform analysis. Most looked like regular audio, but the WZUR signal, it had visual data hidden inside. When mapped into a 3D waveform spectrum, it revealed a shape, concentric spirals, nested within one another. A maze, a loop at the center, a symbol he couldn't decipher, but the woman's signal. Hijack, when isolated, didn't have a spiral. It had a straight line, a way out. At midnight, he activated the woman's device. A soft blue light glowed. The static in the air changed, and for the first time, he heard her voice clearly, not overlaid by WZUR, but independent. Alive. You're still free, she said, but not for long. If you want to break the loop, you'll need to go where the broadcasts begin. You need to go back to the tower. The real one, not the ruins. The one that hasn't happened yet. Know it when you see the sky turn black at noon. And whatever you do, don't bring a clock. Time breaks them. The signal faded, and outside his motel window, the stars started blinking out. The motel room lights flickered violently as the last of the stars blinked out. Noah stood at the window, gripping the woman's device, watching as the sky turned. An impossible shade of charcoal, not dusk, not night, but something in between. A pause in the world's normal rhythm. He turned to Eliora. Her hands trembled as she gathered her old radio schematics. It's happening, she whispered. The final loop. The sky's changing means they're collapsing the older versions. You don't have long. Noah looked down at the spiraled waveform he had extracted from WZUR's last signal. The symbol at the center pulsed gently, as if in sync with his heart. Beneath it, buried in the spectrum, was a new pattern. Coordinates. Latitude, 41.90. Longitude, -75.28, he mumbled aloud. That's not Graybridge. Eliora nodded. No, that's where the original tower was built. Not the station in the city. The one before even WZUR. Military-grade Cold War relic. It was meant for long-range quantum tests. They shut it down. Buried it. Noah grabbed his coat. Then that's where I'm going. You'll need this, she said, pressing a faded map into his hand. They've deleted it from GPS, but this will get you close. Noah hesitated. You're not coming? She smiled sadly. I've already lasted longer than I should have. You've seen my hands. I'm becoming noise. If I enter that place, I'll be static before I hit the door. He reached forward and hugged her. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, she said. If the woman was right, you'll be walking into the core of the loop, where the signal originates, where time folds. That place doesn't exist in a straight line. Noah paused. What happens if I reach the center? Eliora stared into the static-filled screen. Then maybe you break the cycle. Noah drove through the dark countryside, guided only by Eliora's map and the occasional flicker of his headlights across rusted road signs. Every few miles, he saw old poles, radio towers, long defunct, bent at odd angles, as if warped by invisible gravity. At 11:43 a.m., he reached the clearing. A rusted fence ringed a compound half buried in moss and soil. Trees leaned away from the center. The clouds above spun slowly, unnaturally, like water circling a drain in reverse. The building at the center looked new, despite being abandoned for decades. Smooth steel, seamless edges. It didn't belong to any decade Noah recognized. It looked future-old, built after time, yet already decaying, and above it stood the tower's leak, obsidian black, humming faintly. It wasn't a broadcast tower, it was an antenna for time. Inside, the halls were lit by a dim red glow from long-dead emergency lights. The woman's device began to vibrate in his hand, gently guiding him forward, like a compass. He followed. Every door he passed had a label. Simulation recording Bay 1 mimetic loop buffering. Subject 45321F, reinserted WZUR relay room. That one stopped him cold. He stepped inside. It was a chamber, half studio, half machine. At its center, a massive recording device. Wires poured out like roots. Screens showed flickering. Segments of people's lives, each on a loop. Fire, a hospital lockdown, a tower collapse. His life, and on the far wall, a reel, a tape, labeled NOA, H fields, insert 12. Time loop integrity, stable, his knees buckled. He was. A recording, a rebroadcast. Then a voice from behind. "It's not the end yet," she said. He turned. The woman from the square stood in the doorway. The signal hijacker. Her face was pale, but determined. "They record everything here," she said. "Every possibility. Every action. Then choose which one to loop until the subject decays. You've been in this room dozens of times." Noah touched the reel. "I want out." She nodded. "Then destroy the tape. Your tape. Cut yourself out of the loop." He reached for a hand. Alarms screamed. The tower above pulsed red. A voice, cold and mechanical, echoed through the facility. "Subject 45321F. Unauthorized deviation. Reinsert. Reinforce." The alarm's shrill wail reverberated through the walls, like it was coming from inside Noah's bones. Lights strobed red and white, disorienting, almost hypnotic. The broadcast tower outside howled like metal in a storm. Somewhere deep in the structure, massive coils thrummed to life, feeding power to the core loop mechanism. Noah stared at the reel. Noah Fields, insert 12-time loop integrity stable. 12 versions of him, each failed. Each reinserted. The woman, still unnamed, still spectral, moved swiftly. "They'll overwrite you permanently if you hesitate now. We have seconds. That reel must be destroyed." He reached for the metal arm of the recorder, but as soon as his hand touched it, the reel began to spin. Not slowly. Fast. Too fast. Blurring. And then the air shimmered. Suddenly. Noah stood in his attic, staring at the broken radio on the floor. No. He spun around. Everything was where it had been days ago. The notebook. The busted equipment. His hands trembling, just like they did the night of the first transmission. He heard the same voice. "This is WZUR. 94.7 megahertz. Transmitting from Gray Bridge, July 18th, 2025. His lips parted. No. The loop had reset. Again, all progress gone. No. A hand snapped him out of it. He was back in the broadcast room. The woman had pulled him out of the loop as it tried to reassert itself. Her device glowed violently, glowing veins of light. Crawling across her arm. "I can't do that again," she gasped. "One more pull like that and I'm gone. What do I do?" He cried. She looked at the spinning reel, then at the massive processor rack surrounding it. "You don't just cut the tape," she said. "You overload the broadcast. Force feed it to many futures at once. It can't loop if there's no path to follow." She tossed him a small drive. "I built this from the side frequencies, corrupted timelines. Ones they can't use. Plug it into the master console." Noah didn't hesitate. He found the master panel massive with analog ports and glowing plasma screens. He shoved the drive into a central jack labeled spool priority input. A deep, metallic groan came from beneath the floor. The entire tower shuddered. Outside, thunder cracked. Reality rippled. The red sky split into dozens of glitching frames. Some daytime, some night, some filled with fire. The voice returned, panicked. Now not calm. Timeline corruption. Broadcast instability. Subject 45321F. Non-compliant. Directive failure. Loop closed error, loop closed error. The reel burst into flames. The control panel exploded in. Sparks. Noah and the woman hit the ground as shards of glass flew from the monitors. One of the side walls crumbled, revealing a black void behind it, a window into nothing. The tower was disintegrating. "I think we did it," he gasped. She staggered to her feet. "Not yet. You're still here. You need to walk out on your own. Exit the field. Step outside the loop. Where's the door?" She pointed at the only exit still intact. "Once you go, it won't be reset again. You'll remember. You'll be real." He turned back to her. "What about you?" Shh. Smiled, faint and distant. "I already left once. I just came back to help you." And with that, she flickered, like static on a broken screen, and vanished. Noah walked through the door. The red light faded. The sky turned a natural blue. The wind carried the sounds of birds. Not static, and in the distance the tower was. Gone, just a grassy hill, with nothing but flowers. 1 week later, Noah sat in his attic again, but not to listen. The notebook was gone, the equipment boxed. He didn't trust radios. Anymore, the woman's device lay silent on his desk. But he remembered, and he was still here. A man who had heard the future and refused to be part of it. He walked outside into the sunlight, breathed the warm air, and smiled. He had cut the loop, and now, for the first time in who knows how many iterations, he was free.